Welcome to Some Dare Call It an Interview. As well as our monthly deep dives that we release on the first of every month, we will be releasing interviews with academics, experts, authors, and insiders on the 15th of every month. Hit subscribe now because I'm telling you this, you do not want to miss what we have coming up. Now joining us today is Rob Jacobson, who worked for Alex Jones at Infowars from 2004 till 2017 and helped Alex create his most iconic films including Endgame, Terror Storm, and The Obama Deception. But most recently, Rob was involved in the Sandy Hook defamation trial, where he gave evidence against Alex Jones. But we'll get into all of that. This was a great interview, hearing firsthand the inside scoop of Infowars and Rob's own journey out of the rabbit hole. Enjoy.
Hello. How's it going?
Very good, thanks. How are you?
Oh, really well. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this, mate. This is brilliant. Really looking forward to this.
Thank you for sending me that message. Glad to join.
Also, thank you very much for coming on and speaking to us, mate.
You're welcome.
Would you mind introducing yourself to our audience and let them know why you're here today?
My name is Rob Jacobson. I worked with Alex at Infowars for approximately 13 years until May of 2017. And that was a couple of years ago that I've left. And basically, I appeared in Alex's deposition because while working there, I noticed that the writing staff, as well as Alex and the production staff there, were heavily relying on this character, Wolfgang Halbig, as a source for the information that Sandy Hook was a fictitious event and that there were only crisis actors. I would also like to make everybody aware that I was not part of his radio show. I was part of his video production staff that did sort of other things. Mm-hmm. So I never really listened to the show, or at least only in very brief intervals within the office. So I knew Alex's gimmick, of course, which is mass shooting events will be used by the government to take away the Second Amendment rights of Americans. I wasn't really aware of the fact that he was saying the entire event was completely false. I became aware of that more and more as I started getting more and more hints by listening to sort of brief amounts of radio show or his video show in the hallways of the building where there were monitors and whatnot. When I realized that this guy, Wolfgang Halbig, was coming on as their sort of primary source of this information, as it was already like the fifth or sixth time this man appeared on the show, I came to an epiphany moment of just how dreadful the things that the people who I knew inside the office were actually doing. They were more or less accusing parents of murdered children in front of millions of people of being outright liars. And I understood the monumental hurdle that even, a journalist who had such a hunch would have to, such a high bar to have to prove such allegations before bringing it to the public, because it's such a hideous thing to claim. Taking the word of one old man who could be out for anything is definitely not clearing that hurdle. And so I brought it to the writer's attentions. I was like, a journalist has to be objective. You have to go out and get material evidence of the things you're claiming before you publish your story, before you write a story about this. And, they would come back with, we have the right to ask questions. Hey, you do have the right to ask questions, but you don't have the right to bring your assumptions to millions of people without hard material evidence to back it up. And when you're claiming that parents of slain children are liars, more or less, you better have an ironclad, bulletproof amount of evidence to absolutely back up your claim, which I'm like, I don't think Wolfgang Halbig is that ironclad evidence that you're seeking. And the writers then laughed at me, made jokes, which was in last week's testimony. Adon Salazar said that actually he was about to call the Infowars store and ask them to make T-shirts that said "How big was right" and bumper stickers and stuff like that. So yeah, it was met with grand laughter, and at that point, I realized I was talking to a wall. My point was not getting through. They were going to write whatever they're going to write. I gave them the warning that this was illegitimate, unethical journalism. I mean, there's a reason why there is an ethical standard in journalism to prevent exactly what they were doing from being done. And I gave my testimony to Mark Bankston, as well as the lawyer from Connecticut in his upcoming case. And, at first it was, met with, again, Alex claiming that I was just somebody out, a vindictive person, out for revenge, until Adon Salazar himself, during his deposition under sworn testimony, confirmed the fact that I did, in fact, go into the room and tell him these things. And this was while Adon was still working for Alex. So, there's only one reason, and that's because it was the truth and it came out of Adon's mouth. And it was the truth. These events actually occurred. And not only did Adon say this under sworn testimony, but so did Kit Daniels, another writer for Infowars. Both confirmed, because they were both there and they both had a good laugh at the fact that I was advising them to do ethical journalism and not ridicule parents who lost their children under some of the worst horrendous conditions you could possibly imagine.
I saw your deposition. I thought it was very powerful. I thought that it was really very obvious that you meant it. There was a lot of emotion there. Yeah, you should be very proud of that, I think. I mean, not that you need me to tell you that, obviously, but so can I just ask, in regards to Sandy Hook, did they? Yeah, right. So, did the Infowars staff think that Halbig was right, or did they not care?
I think it was, first of all, Alex wanted to move this story forward. And it was a combination of them not caring and them. I believe Adon really believed he thought it was right. Yeah. I think Adon really did. He didn't do enough research. He was definitely an amateur at best reporter. I don't think one could even classify Adon as an actual journalist in any sense of the word. He has no idea how to do extensive research, and he's never apprenticed with an actual journalist. So he's never been down that road. He doesn't know what it means to gather objective evidence, I don't think. So when he did the minimal amount of research, more or less suggested by Halbig himself, and maybe other leads that he found on 4chan, that was good enough for him. He absolutely was convinced. And I know a lot of other people in the office were more or less convinced as well. For example, I believe, now don't get me wrong, it has been a while, so if I get some of the parents' names confused, I apologize. But I believe it was Posner who, laughed at somebody's quick joke right before going on camera. And everybody.
Was that probably Parker?
Parker. It was possibly Parker. Okay. I remember the imagery. I can't, unless I go back and look at the documents. But the point of this all is, regardless of which parent it was, they were convinced the fact that the man laughed at a joke that somebody said to him, maybe something ironic happened, right before the fact that the man found humor in it, was absolute. That was their objective evidence. And I'm like, no, we don't know the circumstances of why he laughed. We don't know what was said to him right beforehand. And we do know, if we ask any psychologist at all, that people still have emotions.
In strange ways, yeah.
Right. People have emotions. They can still, people even going through tragedy will still laugh at jokes and so on and so forth. So it really doesn't mean anything that he was laughing at a joke. But for a lot of the staff members, that was it. Like how he's out of character, this kind of thing. And there was no getting across to them that what it really meant to be an actual journalist. I couldn't explain to them, like, you have to have material, objective evidence, something you could basically hold in your hand or expert witness testimony or an actual witness who is there on the scene, who can tell you as an eyewitness with corroborative evidence, that these things actually occurred. And they have none of that. They had some guy who was, as we learned in the court case, Halbig's credentials were all most likely fabricated, and most likely he was a scam artist, which is what I felt he was. I felt Wolfgang Halbig was somebody who was an old guy, and he was really very elated by getting so much attention, and having that much attention, and through Alex's audience, positive feedback. He was addicted to coming on the show, and he would do basically anything he can to provide the Infowars producer at the time, which was Rob Dew, any shred of new available stuff to get more airtime. And that's really the way I felt about Halbig, because when the guy appears a fifth time, it's just like, okay, what's up with this already? And that's what really keyed me off to what was going on, and brought me to this epiphany of just how horrendous the activities of my coworkers were doing. And I was part of it because I was in that office. So I did what I can to basically tell these guys who I was very familiar with to knock it off. And there was no knocking it off.
I remember that time myself, because that was like, Sandy Hook obviously happens December 2012, and then a lot of the story starts coming out around 2013. And I remember seeing Halbig and having the same impression of him. I was like, where does this guy come from? I know the Truth Movement. I've never heard of this guy in my life. But who is he? What's going on? And the same with the father laughing. I remember people pushing this as if it was some sort of proof. And I was also at that time saying, haven't you ever heard of nervous laughter or just being awkward?
Or maybe something was said to him that was legitimate, really funny, and you can't help but laugh at a moment. Could have been anything. It could have been anything. And the fact that they weren't considering the fact that they were dealing with, at best, cross-sectional information where they didn't know the full story, and they just were seeing a very thin slice of what was going on, leaving a lot up to the imagination.
Yeah.
And they were just going with their imagination.
No, I think you're right. I have a bit of a theory about that. I wonder if you could sort of appraise it for me, because at the time, obviously there was all the sort of 2012, the world's going to end. For want of a better phrase, conspiracy theories had got a sort of a bit of a boom in the sort of in the popular culture and whatnot. But the thing is, nothing had really happened for a while, and by which I mean there hadn't been a large event. There'd been 9/11, there'd been the invasion of Iraq, Alex and Bohemian Grove, various sort of bombings, Oklahoma and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden you had this audience who wanted material, and nothing had happened. And then when Sandy Hook came around, it was almost like people were so desperate to make it something, make it a massive event, that they sort of let their imaginations get away with them. So I suppose my question is two-part. One, do you think that is the case? And two, because of the popularity of Sandy Hook, do you think that Infowars' decision to sort of run with it was driven by the audience and knowing that this would sell, so to speak?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Alex would check his ratings on.
Really?
Yes, he would check his ratings to see how many people are tuning in. For example, a close associate of Alex's would be Jerome Corsi. But I'll tell you this much.
Yeah.
When Corsi got on the show, people tuned out. And this is why Alex stopped putting him on the show so much, because the ratings would drop. But when Sandy Hook, he's difficult to listen to. He has a weird voice. He talks he talks very technically. He's a very boring guy, Corsi, even though he may say whatever his subject matter may, to those who are interested in him, they may be Corsi fans, but for the most part, people did tune out. The numbers dropped. When Sandy Hook was mentioned, the numbers would skyrocket. People wanted to hear it. And being that it was in 2012 and nothing, the Mayan calendar thing didn't happen, there was no end of the world, or anything like that took place. Alex had to keep the momentum going, and it was a big seller, and so when he was classified as perpetuating this lie to make money, that is a literal truth. There is no debate about it. It's not that, did Alex believe it? Was he talked into it in 2014? Did he originally think it was a false flag event or an actual event that the press is going to use to take away the Second Amendment? And then he was later convinced that it was actually a false event that, the testimony showed that he was convinced of after a while. Regardless, he knew that it was a moneymaker, and he just went down that road.
It seems like there was a shift in content, like on Infowars. I mean, when was it, sorry, that you actually started working for Infowars?
I started working for Infowars in late 2004. And, my first film with him. So I used to do his long form films, and that was my job until he stopped doing those. And then my role there sort of shifted into doing these, what he called the hot topics.
Yeah.
And I think that's a standard term in media, which would be, for those who aren't aware of what they might be, is in the commercial breaks, we would run anybody but Alex. So anybody who was on air would read about a 1-minute headline of the day, some current events that we ran in the commercial spot. So instead of running a 1-minute commercial, you'd hear like David Knight talk about, somebody in the government said this, and it was featured on God knows what publication. And what I used to do is, it's the same thing with everybody. I reminded everybody to please keep it objective. You only have 1 minute. You could simply quote another news source, and that's objectively. You could just say, Newsweek says, or, the Wall Street Journal says, and you're good. And, and this is why I never really listened to the show, because when I came in, I would be editing those. They would do about 2 or 3 of those a show, and I'd get one done before the show, so it would be running. Then I'd get one done 2 or more, during the show. So sort of, there'd be updates. And then there was a nightly news program that he did, in which case I basically did the same thing, prepared video versions of those for his nightly news show.
Which films did you work on?
My first one was in 2004. It has the red cover, and it was called Martial Law, 9/11, and Rise of the Police State. I'm almost certain that was the name of the DVD. Yeah. And it features the 2004 Republican National Convention out of New York City. And that was the primary thing, and it ends with this long conclusion about Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, yeah, and he says that he'd got Nazi material and posed naked and stuff like that.
Right. He posed naked. Here he is going Heil Hitler. And, then we talked about Donald Rumsfeld, I believe we spoke about, and Karl Rove. Right. And he talked about the Bund Party in the United States, which is frighteningly similar to what's going on at Turning Point USA.
Quite.
Right now, like it's frighteningly parallel almost.
There seems to be a shift in politics within Infowars. Was that on purpose? Was it just that it was never clear before? Because Alex used to say that he was basically politically neutral, and then as soon as Trump sort of started floating around, then it became basically attack the Democrats. Was that again? What was that? Was that Alex always like that and just didn't promote that because it wasn't a selling point? Did he? What's the deal?
Well, the old story, and I've heard this from Alex personally, is that before Alex actually did his public access show in Austin, Texas, which gave him a lot of popularity in Austin, Texas, but before that, he used to be one of these guys that called into right-wing radio shows.
Okay.
So he'd be a regular caller on, I don't know which ones, but he would call up these right-wing radio shows and, be a regular caller. They'd know him, and he would discuss local politics, or not local, but, whatever the current headlines are, and they'd have a back and forth until, according to him,
he realized even the Republicans were sort of lousy, let's just say. They were also corrupt. And so he then put the Republicans in the same sort of category as the Democrats. And that's when he became above left-right politics. And he stayed that way. Obviously, if you saw that film that we just discussed, he sort of stayed that way and hovered there for a long time, where he would criticize the Republicans just as harshly as he criticized the Democrats. And at the time, I was sort of politically naive, like completely naive. So I really bought into this above the left-right paradigm wholeheartedly. I was like, I don't like either party. They're all bastards, And basically, Alex went through basically two changes that, it's not just one big change. It was really two changes. The first change is when he changed his sort of format from just selling his own products, his own media, movies and books, and his own more or less hand-selected advertisers and people who stocked his own warehouse shelf, to selling those vitamins. That's the first major shift. And he went from being a decent businessman, making a healthy living and providing, whatever, 35, 40 employees with jobs and so on and so forth. He went from that to being ridiculously wealthy because he didn't have to deal with middlemen at all. Most of those products were sourced by him. And so those were his products. And that struck me as kind of odd, being such an old schooler there, that I was like, what are we, GNC all of a sudden? Like, we're selling vitamins? Like, what the hell is this? And I know a lot of his audience also felt the same way, because he went from selling basic stuff, which is basic, what you'd expect him to sell, which would be survival gear, books, things like that. He'd always had the survival food guy. He always had his pure soap guy and all this other stuff, to selling his own personal brand of vitamins, which was weird. But the second shift happened when Roger Stone entered the scene. And that's when that's when the turn went from, it was like a hard 180. And, there was no turning back then. I still remember, because it wasn't the Alex that I knew. I still remember him voting for Trump in the primary in Texas. And I've never seen Alex vote for a political candidate or go out and vote at all. It's just like, why vote? This whole thing is like the elections are rigged, that kind of thing. And you can take it from there.
With regards to Roger Stone entering the picture, did anybody mention the fact that basically we made a film about the riot that he caused in Florida? Like, he basically started lobbying with Black Manafort, Black and Stone, or Black Manafort Stone, whatever they're called. Like, how does that happen that somebody like Roger Stone all of a sudden is on Infowars?
Right. Well, that first of all, yes, there were warnings again about Roger Stone from within the office. Reporters would tell him, what is it? That reporter who we got into
Kurt Nimmer
fight with? Not just Kurt. Kurt was one of them. The other guy, whatever, he was a Washington, D.C. reporter. He's an actual journalist. Told Alex that we wrote an article criticizing Roger Stone. It appeared on Infowars, talking about him. I forgot his name. But yes, that guy warned Alex about Roger, including David Knight, was absolutely livid over the fact that Roger Stone was suddenly coming on the show. And, we could all understand Roger Stone appearing one single time. That, I don't think, is above, okay, the guy makes an appearance, Alex does an interview with him. Alex interviewed a lot of people. Having one interview with Roger Stone, it's more like, let's see Alex knock this guy down. That's what I was always interested in. Yeah. But by the time, again, Roger showed up a third and a fourth time, it got on everybody's nerves. It's like, what is, or not everybody's nerves, but people who understood who Roger Stone was, it did get on their nerves. Like, why is he doing this? Like, what's going on here? But something else that people must understand about Alex is, even though he says he's not starstruck and he says he's above worldly things and, fancy cars and, fancy clothing and all this stuff doesn't really impress him, the opposite is actually the truth. He's extremely starstruck. He's extremely, like, if a celebrity gives him any attention, he's infatuated with that star. And any scent of being welcome into an insider's club, Alex runs towards it as fast as possible. So when Roger Stone was flattering him, Alex ate it all up, So I believe it was the fact that Roger Stone knew exactly what he was doing. This is my belief.
Yeah.
That Roger Stone knew exactly what he was doing as a political operative, and especially one for Trump. They were studying Alex, in my belief system. They were studying Alex's numbers. Of course, Trump said that on the show, that you have fantastic numbers. So there's definitely reason to believe that they were studying Alex's numbers, and they wanted to get within the good graces of Alex. So Stone, being who he is, probably flattered him, said all sorts of nice things. And Alex knew who Roger Stone was and could not help himself. And that would be the nicest way for me to say it, And that's, of course, an assumption. And me just assuming that he's a weak guy.
Well, I had heard, and I don't recall off the top of the head the source, that essentially Infowars was officially considered part of the Trump election campaign. Did you ever see anything that intimated that? Or do you think that
I've never seen like official Trump letterhead stationery being passed around or anything like that, or there'd be no solid evidence for me to confirm that one way or another, but it certainly felt that way once Trump got involved. And in fact, I remember during 2016 or something, during when the campaign was really hot and heavy, we started making all sorts of Trump promos.
Yeah.
And again, another sort of epiphany moment that I had was this sort of triumphant music that we were putting together. Alex is all like that. He's into, very big Star Wars fan. So we had music that's kind of reminiscent of that and all this, garbage. And one of Alex's staff members, another video guy, came into the spot, the area, because I was at that point, my desk was in one of his control rooms. He came into the control room as that was airing, and he was like yeah. And I was like, listen, I don't care who the hell is running. You should never yeah a politician. He's just a guy running for president.
Did Steve Bannon have any influence, or even Rebecca or Robert Mercer that you know of with Infowars?
I don't have any recollection of Steve Bannon being part of that scene, but people I do remember being injected into Infowars, even to Rob Dew's kind of chagrin, was Jack Posobiec. Like, all of a sudden, Jack Posobiec, and I actually remember Dew coming into me. We would casually talk here and there, especially about the media, saying like, Posobiec's on the show again. Who the hell is this guy?
Huh.
I have absolutely no idea who this Jack Posobiec. For all I know, this guy could be Adam. I don't know who this person is. I don't know why we're validating his opinion one way or another. I don't know what it's supposed to be.
Was it just that he was popular? Was it that he
I don't even remember him. I don't even remember Jack Posobiec being popular. But recently, I hear a lot of people calling Posobiec Roger Stone's protege, which makes a lot of sense to me. I did not hear that while working there. To me, I honestly thought he might be Owen Schroyer's friend. I had no idea where the hell this guy is coming from. And I totally agreed with Dew at that point when it was like, who the hell is this Jack Posobiec? I know people too. Could we have them on the show? And platform them in front of millions of people. Like I had no idea who this Jack. And now Posobiec is a very toxic entity on,
In general.
the general, web.
Yeah, in general,
Just, I see Jack Posobiec showing up, and it's just like, oh God, here this guy is again. My impression of him has never ever altered. It's always been, who the hell is this guy? Like years and years later, I'm still at, who the hell is this guy? Why do people take Jack Posobiec seriously? He's just some guy. Like, what the hell is this? And here he is on all the shows, and there are other names in the internet world that, again, it just baffles me. Like this Tim Pool. Like, how is this man so popular? He's completely uneducated. He says dumb things. He gets it wrong all the time. And yet people are, he's not even like talented. Like, at least we could say Alex has a charismatic personality. Yeah. He's out of the ordinary. He could be very funny. Tim Pool displays, he's just bland, average, sort of like a C student at best, He has an annoying voice. He wears a smelly looking hat. Where is this guy coming from? Like,
and a terrible sidekick.
Oh my God. Like, and I see him on Twitter, and he basically, he worships his own opinion, and it's like, what? But you get it wrong quite a bit, a bit.
There's a lot of this sort of juvenile, like, troll culture at the minute, isn't there? Like, people who are basically, like, willing to say the unsayable, which is not actually what they're doing. They're just being a dick. Yeah. Like, it's people live vicariously through these idiots, don't they?
I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, it's a cult, and I hate to say it, it is a cult. It's a cult. Yeah. And whenever you get these sort of cult leaders, which all will center around Trump ultimately, but these sort of, custodians or official, people at the higher rung of this cult, everybody will grasp on and do it, make mental acrobats to validate their opinion and to keep it going on.
So, sorry, my theory on that is that a lot of these sort of, the commentators that you get at the minute, your Rubins, your Crowders, your Turning Point, your SA, your Candace Owens and stuff like that, they've actually got a lot of backing from people like DeVos family, Rebel Media, extensions of Coke Industries through George Mason University and stuff like that. And the sort of overriding factor seems to be either the Heritage Foundation or the Council for National Policy or vaguely the John Birch Society. Did you see any influence from any of those entities with either Alex Jones or Infowars?
Well, the John Birch Society, somebody brought that to my attention. An old friend of mine, when I was visiting friends and family in New York one time, brought it to my attention that Alex might be a John Bircher. And it might be true that his father might have been part of the John Birch Society, or he was himself. But I used to go to Alex's house for the holidays. He would invite me over, Thanksgiving or whatever, Christmas sometimes. And I actually did take a look around at one point to see if there was any John Birch sort of stuff on the wall, maybe just a membership, a frame, sort of anything. And I could not find a thing that positively said that he was or his family was involved in the John Birch Society when it comes to, let's say, placards or anything like that. But that doesn't mean he's not. That doesn't mean he's not.
Did he ever speak about it then?
I think he did. He did speak about it when he had.
I mean, with you, sorry.
No, he never spoke to me about the John Birch Society directly. He had a couple of guests on, and they would talk openly about the John Birch Society and the similarities between their sort of conservative point of view when it comes to American politics.
I believe Alex described Donald Trump as a John Birch president. I think that's an accurate quote. So, fair play.
I mean, I do remember Alex having guys on, and they would discuss who the John Birch Society is, and the history of it, and what real conservative politics in America is supposed to mean, and where it came from sort of the anti-communist 50s in America, that kind of thing.
The Gary Allen book. Is it Gary Allen? Have I got that right? The non-dare call it conspiracy, which is
Yes, I
essentially
believe
what our
so.
podcast is named after. So, you know, when you got started for Infowars, what was your sort of take? And what is your take now? Did you consider yourself, for want of a better word, a truther? Do you
Yeah.
still believe that there's something dodgy, say, about 9/11 or JFK?
No. I mean, here's my story that I'd like. I mean, this is, first of all, I am negotiating a book right now. And the reason why I'm doing so is not just to dish out dirt on Alex. It's because I identified for a long time, as somebody who was a truther. And where was I coming from? And who I want people to know, like, because now I see a lot of people who are whether worshiping Alex Jones or worshiping Tim Pool or David Rubin or any of these guys, Crowder, the whole nine yards. I see them as sort of what I saw myself, and as somebody who never, a lot of people say that, okay, a large part of the audience has emotional problems, which is probably true for some extent. I wouldn't accuse that of everybody though. I would just say that that's true of any large group of people.
Yeah, sure.
Who I really, really sincerely feel is the majority, meaning in the bell curve over there, without going to extremes or cherry picking a small group of people and accusing them of anything. I really feel that the majority of the people were sort of similar to who I was. And that was somebody who was a curious person who knew that I had the potential at school. I was always told by all the teachers, you have great potential, but I never did my homework. I was one of those kids. I never read anything. I didn't know anything. In college, all I did is go to parties, and I did my best to dodge classes. I woke up late. And, I look back at my college transcript right now, and it's absolutely like, ugh. Besides the fact that Roger Stone and all these people and then Vitamins came into the scene, which was very disenfranchising course and sort of blew apart the illusion for me on one angle. The other thing is I took it upon myself because I've heard everything Alex said. I've had a lot of epiphanies there, like when it came to Sandy Hook or when it came to other things. Who are these people? Sort of thing. I also came to the conclusion, it's like, I'd like to know what mainstream historians say about history without hearing. I've already heard Alex's version of, the founding fathers and the American Constitution and, whatever, the Revolutionary War and world history. I've heard Alex's take on all of this. I'd like to know what real, just generalized, mainstream historians have to say about all of this. So I started reading. I read about the ratification of the Constitution. I read about 1776. I read about those are the first things I read about. And of course, being curious mind and somebody who actually loves books, even though I didn't like school, I'm still a book lover. I got addicted to it. I read nothing off of Alex's shelves and just, I started with maybe a year or so of history, mainstream history, written in prose by some of the best authors, and I still have those books on my shelf to this day because they were great. I read about, the East Coast Indians and all that stuff and Native Americans and some of this stuff actually fascinates me. And to this day, I get into these Twitter arguments with people who will tell, oh, we're original Americans, we're Plymouth Rock Americans. And I'm like, Plymouth Rock took place, like the American Revolution is sort of a halfway point, like from our present day with computers and space and all the stuff to the American Revolution. You could take the same leap in time backwards in time and you will get to Plymouth Rock. So there was a tremendous amount of history in between Plymouth Rock and, the American Revolution and American history. So one thing really has nothing to do with the other if you really, really know what you're talking about. And other things about the Revolutionary War, the Constitution, how the founding fathers treated each other, how
the Second Amendment, especially about the Second Amendment. I mean, I find it fascinating that I just recently got into a Twitter kind of back and forth with a Marine type, and he's all Second Amendment. And he's spitting stuff at me from what Alexander Hamilton said, and quotes and letters from James Madison. And I had to remind him, I was like, where in this does it say anything about individuals carrying guns? Like it talks about organized militia, which is, something that Alex doesn't really talk about that much, that the founding fathers of the United States believed that a random, just mass of people who are armed will be absolutely wiped out against a disciplined army. And this is where the well-regulated militia part comes in, because if you're not going to be well-regulated, well, what's the point? And just some guy who owns any old gun, and even a group of them who get together, is nothing. Even if it's thousands, tens and thousands of people, if it's just a disorganized clump of people, you're not going to be able to defeat an army of the same amount of people who have discipline and they're well regulated. And, all these ideas. And then my reading went on. It went on from that to science and philosophy and so on and so forth. Once I got to the end of my little history journey there, taking it one book at a time. So I Alex's disposition when it came to his above the left-right paradigm to being sort of this cheerleader for Trump and this high-dollar businessman for medicine, or whatever the hell you call that, nutraceuticals is what he calls them.
Right.
The fact that Alex didn't want to, we'd go out to dinner, and that's all I would be doing is reading those books. So I had nothing else really to talk about. So it's like, Alex, let's talk about this. And no, thanks. He didn't even want to talk about any of the stuff I would talk. I was like, you don't want to talk about the ratification? It's so interesting. Like, it's so amazing that Thomas Jefferson absolutely despised Patrick Henry and all. Like, they hated each other because Patrick Henry was really sort of a states' right. He hated the federal government, where Jefferson was about we the people, but the people, he was into federal government as well, where Patrick Henry absolutely objected that idea, and so on and so forth. And he never wanted to discuss actual science. I even read alternative science just because it was outlandish, and I would like to.
You thought you'd hook him on that, perhaps?
He wouldn't. No, he wouldn't. He would actually make fun of me on that. Yeah, he'd make fun of me on that.
Right.
As well. He'd be like, no, we're not listening, because, science doesn't answer all questions. So, you go into philosophy and stuff. And he just wouldn't even talk about that. He'd talk about nothing of the sort. And by the time I fell out of Alex's sort of, central circle, when this guy, Anthony Gucciardi, came on board. Gucciardi was the guy who brought Alex all these vitamins and whatnot.
Right.
By the time, I rethought everything, including 9/11. Of course, I was hot and heavy into, 9/11 was an inside job, so on and so forth. And now, my point of view is I don't really believe that the United States government is the culprit, along with, let's say, Israel. I don't think it was them. I do believe it was Saudi Arabia. And it was basically an offshoot of Saudi Arabia. And it was a terrorist attack, more or less described in the way we all know it. Like, that's basically what happened.
Yeah, that's the conclusions I've come to as well.
Yeah, if you look at the physical properties, jet fuel may not be able to melt steel, but it will definitely warp it and change its properties to the point where it can no longer hold
the weight above it,
a weight above it of a 110-story building. And jet fuel does burn very, I know burns at a lower temperature than, let's say, other fuels, but it also burns very fast. I just came to the conclusion that when it comes to this physical stuff, some stuff can be easily explained by real physicists, and other things I don't understand. I'm not going to sit around and be like, no, it's definitely thermite, because I don't understand physics. So it has to be thermite or thermate, just because I don't understand it. I do remember when we made the film Terror Storm. So I also did that film with Alex.
Yeah.
Alex was into putting a missile hit the Pentagon theory. He was actually going to put it into the film, or he was heavily considering it. And I looked at that security footage over and over and over again. And I was like, if that plane was moving at like 400 miles an hour, it looked like the plane sort of bottomed out and hit the surface of the ground, like literally a nanosecond before it hit the Pentagon itself. I'm like, I do know what impacts look like. I've seen high speed impacts before at a much slower speed than, let's say, 400 miles an hour or 300 miles an hour, or however fast a plane was allegedly moving at that point. And at 60 or 70 miles an hour, things are just flattened. It's just completely blown apart and stuff. And I'm like, if that plane was moving at 300 miles an hour and hit the concrete building, it would be vaporized, in my opinion, And I don't know
more
anything.
or less,
I just
absolutely.
know that it would be completely pulverized. There would be nothing recognizable left. And so if you watch Terror Storm and go back, so I did speak to this with Alex, because he would, when we were doing the films, he would, especially in those days, he would spend a lot of time with me, and we would basically, he would basically review what I put together and this and that. And I told him exactly that. I was like, listen, that could be a plane that we're looking at. Like, the Pentagon is only releasing a couple of frames of footage. It's true, but that's suspicious in and of itself, because they are the Pentagon, and they may have a lot of security classified information that they're not going to release. So what they did give the public, that could be a plane moving at 400 miles an hour that we're just seeing at a 10 frame per second rates.
Yeah.
And we don't know what I convinced them, we do not know what we're looking at. And if you watch Terror Storm right now and you get to the Pentagon part, you will see that we added a big question mark. That was the compromise. Like, could be anything. And it's a big question mark. And he did not make the claim that it was a missile. There were other things that Alex, and this is before I did my reading. I just stuff like that. But after I actually read a lot of books and had a lot of reference to then expert reference to sort of think about what Alex is saying, as opposed to what experts are saying, which was missing from sort of my, thought process before. This is why I bought into 9/11 being an inside job, because I had nothing to compare it to. I had no experts. And of course, Alex also accelerates this don't trust the mainstream media narrative. And that's another thing that Alex is still doing to this day. And a lot of times, there are times when the media is legitimately caught either doing things that are politically motivated or whatever. But one thing everybody has to remember is that they always stick to, even Fox News, when they get it so wrong. Like, that's why they're backing off of this, so-called big lie that Trump is going forward. Because, if they and they were able to get away with it for a long time because they were the good guys in this false news narrative. But they were doing it just as much as anybody else, if not a lot more. And basically, you will see most of these opinion shows, most of these pundits who aren't journalists, they're pundits, they still stick to trying to have objective backing to their claims. They'll never just come out there and say something without witness testimony or expert this or expert that. And if they do get called out too badly, they are going to retract their story pretty quickly. And so for all of the false news accusations going around CNN, even Fox News, even all the rest of them, you will notice that they also always make retractions. They always put up retractions. They always clarify what they're saying. And the other thing is on a lot of these news channels,
their pundits do not make up the majority of their content. That's just the most popular part of their content. The majority of their content is just bland news reports that they repeat all day, like headlines, without one way or another. This one said this one said that. Sometimes it's stupid, like, oh, look, it's a dog's birthday, la, 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 but it's always has this journalistic, like they maintain
well,
the
they're bound by
journalistic
ethical standards, aren't they? Like, and an oversight. There may be elements of bias and people trying to portray opinion as news, particularly as you say with the pundits and stuff like that. But in theory, at least, like the media is actually beholden to rules and regulations that can really land them in trouble, as we saw recently with OAN. And who else was it that had to retract the stuff about the voting machines? Like,
probably Newsmax, but OAN.
I believe it was, yes.
Right. And so, exactly. So when I was watching, all these 9/11 things, it's like, not only did I have no factual foundation to think about when hearing Alex's stories, when there was an official account or an actual explanation of what Alex was talking about, it's like, don't trust them, they're they're just lying, that kind of thing. And so I was deeply under the spell of what Alex was doing. And now when I look out and I sort of see, all these Twitter people, all these Trump people defending Trump tooth and nail, I see myself immediately. I'm like, I know exactly where you guys are coming from. That's the whole point, is that you don't know, you have been disenfranchised, let's say, from thinking. You don't know the difference between objective and subjective thoughts. You are allowing your imagination to run wild, and it's literally cult-like thinking. And today, I would like to get people. I would hope that enough reasonable people, because I also believe there's a lot of people who are very educated who listen to Alex and like what he has to say, but they're also, let's say, on the John Birch Society, or just conservative, or they really like Trump because they just hated politics altogether. And here's this quote unquote outsider, and they hated Bernie Sanders because, God forbid, they're not a communist, this kind of thing. So Trump would be the alternative outsider to Bernie Sanders.
It creates an echo chamber, doesn't it? And people find comfort in basically being surrounded by like-minded people, and also somebody like Alex, to a degree, simplifies the world, which is again psychologically comforting. So you're surrounded by like-minded people, all on the same team, and you know your position in the world and exactly how the world is, and who's going to be bad and who's going to save you, and etc. 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 It's surprisingly alluring without people even knowing. And as I say, a part of it is because you're working out puzzles, and it's interesting and entertaining.
It's entertaining. Yeah, I think also people do feel that they're part of something. They fantasize as if they are, going to be part of some next American revolution, and they're saving America and all this other stuff. And that's where you see January 6th, where even to this day, a lot of them won't even admit that anything wrong happened on that day. Like, no, it was just tourists.
Just tourists, a bunch of old ladies.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Oh, no, there was a sign, and it was unclear whether visitors are allowed or aren't allowed. And I think the sign was taken down, so they weren't sure if visitors were allowed on that day. What do you? They're breaking through windows.
I was just going to say the same thing. I don't think visitors are allowed to break through windows to get in.
Yeah, like, what are you guys? And even right now, with this whole, the FBI went to Trump's house to take these documents, these classified documents. People this morning are like, "What documents? That's not real." I'm like, "No, there are physical documents. There's literally made out of atoms and molecules. They physically lifted this material out of Trump's house. It's real." And it's like, what? No, it's not like people are just being accusatory. The man literally, there's no getting across, because it shatters their sort of fantasy about Trump. And I mean fantasy in the the most
again, literal way, because if you look at the artwork that comes out about Trump, about him being this strong,
Rambo
muscle
guy.
who's kind of riding on an eagle or driving a tank or something, and he has a machine gun in one hand, and an American tattoo or something. I'm like,
He's
no,
Rambo.
Yeah, it's like, no, the guy is horrendously overweight. He's very out of shape. It's like he looks terrible without his makeup on. He's he's not the guy you guys are actually fantasizing about. You're fantasizing about a fictional person. The real Donald Trump is an old school business guy who did a lot of business in New Jersey, where all the casinos are. And, he's very corrupt. He was corrupt back then and connected to the mafia. He took his corrupt policies into Washington, D.C. Everybody's like, oh, look at China, Joe Biden in China, whatever, communism. It's like, well, Ivanka Trump did a lot of business in China while Trump was in office. I'm sorry if you don't want to see this stuff, but the guy is, if you're talking about corrupt politicians who intermingle with business, this is who Donald Trump is. This is who he is. He's not some strong American, patriot. He just knows all the words to tell you guys, and you guys are eating it up. You guys, it's literally throws red meat to the crowd. And, you see what happened on January 6th is sort of a culmination of all these fantasies. And after January 6th, you got Marjorie Taylor Greene, doing some kind of performative, prayer to some phony, symbolic actor in a jail at CPAC. And, they're doing the prayer and all this other stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, maybe these guys shouldn't have gone into the Capitol crushing police to death. I don't know. That actually happened. And so the material world, the sort of reality of what's going on is in the back seat for a lot of these people, in replace of this fantasy that they're the new American revolutionists and they're saving the Constitution, when folks like Charlie Kirk don't even understand the Constitution. Or if he does understand the Constitution, he is making a willful... American values are all about a separation of church and state. There should be no religion that makes our laws. We have freedom of religion, but those religions are separate from policy. And, you get this Lauren Boebert type who is now pushing, we have to do away with separation of church and state. And Charlie Kirk, who basically says, American Christians will take back America. It's like, well, America is not just made of Christians. It's made up of a whole variety of religions and ethnicities and so on and so forth. So that's completely anti-American. This is what's going on. They have their fantasy of what America should be, and they're storming into the Capitol. And basically it's all based on fantasy themselves, believing into this stuff. And this is why I do really believe that the majority, and I understand that there are a lot of educated people as well as a lot of people who are uneducated or people who have real emotional, handicaps, let's just say, for whatever reason, family history or who knows. But putting those people aside for whatever reason that they're diehard Trump supporters, the majority of them are most likely like I was, just somebody who, is not categorically stupid, let's say, let's just say have an average brain, somebody who's capable of reading a book and never read anything in their lives, or, that kind of thing, or never finished a book in their lives. And they don't know what they're talking about. But when they hear something like Alex Jones, they're getting the information that their minds so crave, but it's not good information. It's not valuable. And it's really, and it's really only accelerating in America.
You said something here. I just want to dial back in on it. Where you were talking about like the denial of facts, like saying like January 6th wasn't this violent event. And we were talking about how you've changed over the years, and you talked about how Alex changed and how Infowars changed. Did the audience change?
I believe some of the audience changed and some of it didn't. I believe that the people who didn't change were those who are the Second Amendment people.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to Second Amendment people, a lot of the sort of stereotypes that might be about, gun owning Americans is for a large part true. That it's not just, let me just have a revolver or something and, somewhere hidden in the house just in case there is a burglary or something. It is guys that own, 30, 40, semi-automatic rifles and that kind of thing. And just, what are you going to do with all this stuff? Like, what are you going to do? Like, all right, so you have one hunting rifle because you like hunting, and you got a revolver to protect your family and or whatever, a Glock or something, and some 9mm gun. What are you going to do with all the rest of this stuff? Like, if somebody breaks into your house, you're going to have like optionitis. Should I get him with the or should I get him? And the guy's going to get you or something. Again, like, this is, I realized this when we were out at a shooting range one day, and we were all firing Alex's M50. And this thing was like, and I'm like, wait a minute. I get that you get to own it. It shoots only one round at a time. What are you going to do with this? Like, if somebody breaks into your house, this is not going to protect you at all, because it weighs a ton. You need a bipod in order to fire it, and you can't even accurately hit anything unless they're like 1,000 yards away or more. What are you going to do with this thing? If somebody breaks into your house and you try to use an M50 on them, you're cooked. You're cooked. You'll never. It's not convenient at all. Like, what is this for? Like, how is this even part of the Second Amendment at all? And it's like, well, you got to stop in case the federal government takes over and turns corrupt. Then it's which is where January 6th. This is why I'm saying a lot of the old schoolers, they actually feel that they are doing their Second Amendment duty. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, that's not an insurrection. It failed. Thank God it was not a quote unquote well-regulated militia. It was just a mob of people who stormed the Capitol. And that's what happens, as described by the founding fathers themselves. If you just have a mob of random stragglers try to do anything like that, it's a very, very, no matter how badly they're armed, this is just a weak group. A lot of these guys hold on to their weapons and stuff, thinking that they will defend against corrupt government, tyranny that's going to come through. And it's like, listen, guys, that's more fantasy stuff. I mean,
what's always struck me about that is that basically, who tends to lose against the American army? Other armies, national armies, the Iraqi army, people like that. I'd say they're probably a bit better trained than John and Mark that you meet down at the pub every other Friday.
Right,
so where do people get the idea that, like, well, I've got this in case the army comes after me? Like maybe that was the problem. Maybe the Iraqi army didn't have enough guns. No, they had lots.
The American army, they have military-grade weapons.
Exactly. You're fighting against
sold
drones.
in the stores is consumer grade weapon. So right off the bat, you're out armed without even anything else, let alone that the United States armies have countless tanks and helicopters and all this other stuff that most people don't possess. So even if there was an ultra talented group of, Rambo types, the A-team, and they're, don't mess with John Rambo, I'm here to save you from him. And you have 10 of them or 20 or 1,000. They don't have a helicopter,
No, so but to be fair, the times that the American army has lost wars is due to guerrilla warfare, like Iraq and Vietnam.
That's true.
Wolverines.
That's true.
I'm getting very Red Dawn vibes from you here, Brent. Like, is this why you wanted to meet down the docks tomorrow morning?
Right. You're right. I mean, I understand that, but at the same time,
They're not going to
that was
defeat the
also
American
done
army and land. Yeah.
that was also done in Vietnam. You also have a group of the army there were coming from a home base where their brothers and sisters were actively protesting the war. You know, so I mean, I think places like Vietnam, guerrilla warfare, stuff like that is a very, very complicated situation. I don't think that is the same equation as, let's say,
No.
a group of, I mean, I'm sorry to say, a group of neckbeards.
Yeah.
I mean, have your guns if you want, right? I personally think you should have background checks. I don't see that there's anything wrong with having sensible background checks. You have to have certain things that you have to show you can do before you're allowed a car, right?
Yeah.
So it seems reasonable that you should have to do something to make sure that you're a responsible gun owner. Like, so I don't think get rid of guns and stuff like that, but just be honest. Just say you like guns. Don't use this silly excuse that you're going to one day like fight back against the American army.
I totally agree. I think that there should be standards. So if you want a more powerful gun, you have to pass maybe a more power, go through a more powerful test. And so there's this confabulation also going around in the Alex Jones sort of movement. And I believe it's him who's actually the one pushing it, that regulations means that they're coming for your guns. It's like, no, it doesn't mean they're coming for your guns. It means that, let's say you just don't, some guy off the street just can't go into a gun store with a couple of $1,000s and buy an AR-15. The AR-15 would be available to that guy if he could go through the AR-15 course, the training. Maybe you have to go up the ladder. You get this gun first, and that one first, and this one, and finally you're at the level where you can get the AR-15. I mean, at this point, it's probably a safe thing, and the guy is well trained and well prepared to own such a thing, and they know exactly what they're going to do with it. And it's not going to be some, nut job who.
It just seems reasonable to have some sort of mechanism that might stop a mentally ill 17-year-old from acquiring a weapon with which he can then murder an entire school. Like, I don't know, call me old-fashioned or whatever, but I just have always thought that, it really isn't that much of a massive infringement, any more than having to get a license to drive a car.
Sounds woke to me.
Well,
I don't think. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's not an infringement. I think it is a necessary staple that needs, to be in place in order for there to be a healthy civilization for everybody to thrive in. And if you are a gunsmith or a gun expert or a gun enthusiast, let's just say gun enthusiast, and you want to collect, 10, 20, 30 weapons, that's your right. But,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that has nothing to do with the fact that you have to go through certain standards in order to get them, just like a driver's license or a plane license. You can't just get on a plane and just be like, that's it, I bought a plane, I'm flying it.
It's in the Constitution.
It's in the Constitution, right to travel. I'm traveling. No, I mean, in fact, that's a very, very high standard. You have to go through like a test every other month or something. You have to continuously update your flying permit or whatever it is. Like, it's very, very difficult to maintain a flying license as a pilot. So it should be that difficult, and that's a higher level vehicle than a car, which a car is a higher level vehicle than a bike, which requires basically no certification. A boat, it's very easy to get a boat license or something. Like, it's very simple. It's a little bit more difficult to get a car license. It's much more difficult to get a airplane license, and it's very difficult to get a helicopter license. It's not like you just step on a helicopter and be like, I'm rich, I bought it. Sorry.
Well, it's as the potential harm to you and others rises. Now, this may shock both of you, specifically Brent, despite my woke protestations about guns, but I was actually a member of a gun club when it was still illegal in the UK. Look at Brent looking absolutely shocked. Like, yes, I fired the guns and very much enjoyed it. So,
Hold on, why am I shocked? You remember I grew up in the military?
Oh, that's true, yeah.
We shot guns in high school.
Oh, there you go.
But anyway.
When you say you shot guns in high school, just clarify.
Just clarify that. Hold on, I was in JROTC.
Good.
Okay.
Now, Rob, just going back to something else, can I ask you about the pills and the supplements? Right, I got the impression that you don't think terribly highly of them. Like, I've heard criticisms have been that they're not very good and they're overpriced. Does Alex and the Infowars staff, do they actually believe in these things? Do they take them themselves? What's the
No,
score with that? No.
no.
Paul Joseph
I'll tell
Watson
you.
does not take brain force.
I will tell you the personal. So I don't know about brain force. You got some people swearing by brain force. I took brain force. I didn't notice any
He's
difference
taking
between
something
that.
that's keeping him up till 5 in
Well,
the morning doing
I
manic
don't know what's in
texts.
there. I didn't see anything different between taking brain force and drinking a cup of coffee. They were basically the same effect, in my opinion. When it came to, at the time when Super Male Vitality came out, I was working out, and I would be like, "Oh, I got access to Super Male, ha ha ha," and I would take it, and I really felt no difference, nothing, zero. I was like, I'm just taking a dropper of sugar water. And at the time, Jakari Jackson, who used to work with Alex, he was an on-air guy. He worked out all the time. In fact, I think he was employed at some points as being a male model. At certain, he was very fit, and he went point blank on Alex's show and said, "Doesn't do anything for me." He just went right on his show, and it was just like, yeah, it does no effect. Like, I still remember Alex's face. Like, he couldn't say anything because he's urging everybody to be honest, and he's saying that on the air, like, "Oh, say whatever you want. This is free speech systems. You can say whatever freedom of speech." So Jakari took that literally true, and he's like, "Yeah, nothing." And I do know other staff members. Now, this is behind the scenes, off the air, so I won't mention their names.
Okay.
But I do know they were on-air personalities, or partially on-air personalities, more than one. And a lot of Alex's original products also had very high iodine content. Not just his iodine products per se, which was like X2, and then there was another one that came before that was like super. I don't know what they were called, but I remember X2. He had other products as well that he dumped iodine into them, and the staff members, there was more than one, would take these products every day. Fluoride shield or something. Take it every day. Got to get that fluoride out of my system. I don't, Dr. Strangelove and all this stuff. We don't need the fluoride in the water.
Yeah, that fluid.
So they would take it like every day, to the point where they would have the sweats, and they'd go to the doctor. It's like, I just don't understand it. I'm having like the cold sweats all the time. And so, the doctor does blood work, and it's like, what the hell are you eating? Your iodine levels are through the roof. Like, what are you doing? And at that point, I remember the staff member coming to me. It's like, I will never take Alex's products ever again, because they're just unregulated, not really put together by an expert team of anybody. And at the time, way back then, they were at a point dangerous. So if you didn't know how much, taking that much iodine, and I do remember his X2 product was, I would take a dropper under my tongue, and it felt like it would burn a hole right through my mouth. Now, that was what Alex was selling. He was selling the fact this is pure crystallized iodine, and the strongest stuff you can get. And it really was. It was insanely powerful iodine. But the fact that he put iodine in other products that wasn't labeled iodine gave some health issues to some staff members. Yeah. So that would be my overall review of the Alex vitamin line. I don't know about his vitamins now. Again, I stopped working there in 2017. I have absolutely no idea what's going on there. I do know that he has never stopped making those vitamins, and he has all sorts of things like, help you sleep, help you do this, everything under, calm your children down, everything under the sun.
So, I thought it was bad, but I didn't think it would be that bad. Wow.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, people claim that there's lead and all this stuff in his products. I'm not going to say that. I don't know if that's what's going on. I mean, I'm not a laboratory guy. I never did any tests on the products. I never brought them to a lab. But I do know that when I was taking Super Male Vitality, it was just like, I don't know the difference. I don't feel anything at all. I might as well not take it because what's the deal? And the his other products, I don't think he's been selling Fluoride Shield for years now. But that's what it was like when his products first came out.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very good at all. Do you mind, Rob, talking about why you left Infowars?
Well, I mean, I was looking for a new work for a long time, for about a year before I left. Alex might have caught wind of this or whatever, but I had a professional come and do my resume, my cover letter, and all that other stuff because nothing I was doing was working. Nobody was interested in hiring me at all. And it's like, well, all I have is Alex Jones in my resume. I don't know how to get around that. That represents 13 years of my professional life. And that's my entire reel is just Alex Jones yammering away. So I tried to make the reel look as good as possible, but nothing was helping. And one day coming to work, Alex basically handed my assignment to somebody else, which to me was like a super red flag. Usually when bosses do that, that's sort of like the mega hint. And he's already moved me out of my own, when Alex moved into his so-called new building, which I believe is still there, I had my own office where we were supposed to make movies, and I sound tempered it so that, you could just cut a voiceover right in that room and everything would be cool. So preparing to do other long form videos, which he stopped about a year or so since we got into that new building. And then after that, he basically took me out of that office. I slowly moved out, became more of an outsider than the rest of the staff. Like he more or less distanced himself. When Gucci already came in, then there would be sort of this new crowd of people. And then Roger Stone Group got involved. And at that point, I was really on the outside. And I was looking for new work. I was like, okay, whatever. One day, my assignment was handed to somebody else. And I went to Rob Dew and asked him, why was my assignment handed to somebody else? Meaning those hot topics that I spoke about previously. Yeah. Why was that handed? It was handed to actually Daria, who was the corporate representative during Alex's court cases.
Yeah.
Just recently. It was handed to her because she is a sound technician. And I was like, why'd you give Daria my stuff? Like, why did? And Daria actually came out apologizing to me. Like, I'm sorry. I don't know why they gave this to me. And I asked Dew. I was like, Dew, why did you give my stuff to Daria? Like, I'm here. What are you talking about? And Alex's personal bathroom was in the same area where Rob Dew and other video people were working. So I didn't even know. He overheard the whole thing, and he came out of the bathroom, and he's like, Jacobson, we gave it to Daria. That's the decision we made this morning. And I was like, well, I had Daria hand me back the hot topic. I'm just going to go to my desk right now and do them. Because she gave it back to me. Otherwise, what else am I going to do? I'd like to do my work. And I went back to my desk, and Alex followed me in there, and he put his hand on my shoulder, telling me that, you're really hanging from a loose thread, Jacobson. And I told him, I was like, look, man, I've never missed it. I've never missed a day. I hardly take vacation, and I gave you like 13 years of service. Why would you hand my stuff away like this? Why are you doing this to me? He's like, I'll tell you what, man, you're fired. He just fired me. Get out. Yeah, he fired me right there on the spot. And I mean, even Lydia, who was the HR person at the time, felt bad because she's like, yeah, we never had any complaint against you, Alex. You were part of Infowars for the last 13 years. He wouldn't have held on to you for this long. And I was like, I get it, So Alex got pretty belligerent with me at that point, telling me that good luck finding another job. I was about to give you a raise. And I was like, why would you tell me that the moment you fired me? Like, why don't you just bow face and leave the room like anybody else would? They'd say you're fired if you personally did it. and they'd split. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's telling me like, good luck finding another job. I was about to give you a raise. Then he said, I was like, he told me to get out of the building right away, which in case I said I would, but I want to collect all my stuff first. So he's like, get Rob Dew in here, get Owen Schroyer in here. So Owen came in, and we got into this whole throwdown. So I was like, damn, you just fired me. Fine. And I brought up a lot of the abusive behavior, which I can go on and on about that. If, I mean, I personally don't have the time. That's a whole different chapter.
Is this connected to the David Duke thing?
It's David Duke and more. It's just, I mean, the David Duke thing is a great deal of it. And there's a lot more as well. So I went on and on about all the abuse and stuff. I was like, look, man, I put up with a lot of your stuff, so don't tell. And I've never really even missed a day of work or whatever. Alex pulls out his phone out of his pocket, starts recording me. Like, he's going to make a movie about me. He's going to make a movie about me. I was like, what? Wow. How would I be able to even do that? I don't have a big studio, and more or less after collecting all my stuff, I left. And that's basically what happened.
That seems ridiculously unfair. Was there any sort of recourse that you could take? I mean, surely, like, you would at least have had to have provided some sort of reason to sack you. That just seems outrageous.
Well, in Texas is a quote unquote right to fire state. Okay. So a boss is allowed to terminate their employees for no reason whatsoever. They just have the right to fire anybody they want at any time. So there was very little anything I could do against Alex, when it comes to preserving my job or whatever. There was nothing I could really do. And if you listen to Mark Bankston, the Sandy Hook parents' lawyer, tell his account of how he got involved, he was saying that Mr. Parker was actually having a lot of trouble finding somebody to represent him against Alex until Bankston came along, because nobody would want to fight Alex Jones in court. Nobody does, especially in Texas. So I've encountered the same problem. It wasn't until I met one lawyer who advised me to submit, because I told him the whole story, but not the story I told you guys, like the abusive side. And he suggested I file an EEOC report, and then we take it from there. So I took that particular lawyer's advice and I filed an EEOC report, which actually had a little bit of traction. And I do believe that if I had the money to pursue it and keep lawyers on retainers and whatnot, I probably would have been able to win that case. But the EEOC returned an answer that said, we're not taking sides. That's basically what they said. They're like, we see both sides of the story. We've decided to rule that we're not ruling in anybody's favor. And I dropped it at that. That's when I dropped the case.
That's a shame.
Or dropped. Yeah.
I mean, I get the impression you're slightly reticent to talk about it, but like, can you give us an impression of the sort of an idea of what the abuse entailed?
Straight off the bat, there was the David Duke thing, which that in and of itself isn't directly abusive against me.
So David Duke is a current or former member or leader of the Ku Klux Klan?
Yeah, he was a former leader of he was a former leader, as they call him, a Grand Wizard. He was a former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan.
And he took umbrage at your being Jewish, apparently.
Yeah, right. So it wasn't just that. Like, so Alex had him on for like 3 full hours, which was mind-boggling. Like, David Duke? Giving him giving him the full show. And a lot of, if you ever heard an Alex Jones interview against anybody, Alex cuts everybody off. He doesn't let anybody talk, and not David Duke. He gave David Duke, he was just like, go ahead, 10-minute rants and whatnot. And it was absolutely infuriating listening to it. So at the end of his interview, he invited staff members. Does anybody here have a question? He was literally calling him Dr. Duke by the end of the interview. Does anybody have any interview? questions for Dr. Duke? And I was like, I do. I have a couple of questions, because there was no pushback. Like, I don't think you should have David Duke on your show without having any pushback. And I was like, I have a couple of questions. So Alex literally introduces me to David Duke as the Jewish staff member. Oh, here's my Jewish staff member to ask you questions. Well, what a great idea. In which case, David Duke would not refer to me directly. He called me the Jewish individual. I mean, it was like, what? Why did you just say my staff member Rob would like to have a question with you? That should have been good enough.
That should have been just perfect.
Just
that's
fine.
disgusting.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
He's like, oh, my Jewish staff member over here, and it's like, it's not just like any old guy. It's like David Duke himself, the racist. You know? I mean,
King racist of America.
Yeah, I mean, the guy has a doctorate in racism. You know, it's crazy.
Were you particularly surprised when, I mean, I don't know if you've heard the recent release of Paul Joseph Watson ranting and saying that he wants to rid the world of Jews? Were you surprised when you heard that?
Well, no, I'm not particularly surprised. In fact, anytime there's a couple of people who always met me with sort of disdain, and Paul Joseph Watson is one of them. Like, I have met him occasionally, let's say 2 or 3 times. The first time, I think maybe he was being a complete social, I don't know, I guess dysfunctional social person, I suppose. In around 2006 or 2007, he showed up to Alex's office in South Austin, not the old one that he used to have, which was located in literally smack in the middle of beautiful Austin, Texas, not in some industrial park, but he had an office in right where like the heart of Austin was, in a beautiful side of town. And he barely had anything in that office. It was completely not developed at all. And he brought Paul and his brother Steve into, he flew him in. And at that time, it was like the major staff members for Alex was me and Aaron Dykes. And if anybody who's an old-time Alex listener would remember who Aaron was, we met Paul and Steve. And I mean, these guys are toweringly tall. Okay, so I'm a short guy, and Aaron is probably about 5'11" or so. So he's a couple of inches taller than me. But these guys towered over Aaron, which was like, wow, I had no idea you guys were like
they don't look that big on camera, do they?
No, I was like, you guys, I had no idea you two were like basketball player level tall. And they just stood there. And I mean, I remember their height because it was so weird. Like, they acted so weird. And we were like, hey, we're just trying to be hospitable, I suppose, and hey, I'm glad to see you guys. Happy to meet you. We've seen a lot of your footage. We could take you. We'd like to go to 6th Street. In Austin, Texas, 6th Street is where all the bars are and the restaurants. Let's go to 6th Street tonight. And they're like, nah, oh, okay. If you guys want to hang out, let's do something. We'll show you around because you guys have nothing else to do, I suppose. And it's like, that's okay. That's okay. And I'm like,
no, it's okay. We'll sit in our hotel and do cocaine all night.
Yeah, like, I have no idea. Like, what? And both Aaron and I like looked at each other like, what? Like, what? Why? Who else do you know here? Like, what are you guys talking about? Another time I met Paul, Steve sort of backed out of the whole scene. He pursued something else years later.
Yeah.
I just met Paul at the new building, and he's just like, hey, man. He's like, hey. And that was it. I was like, all right, cool. All right. He was literally there to lecture the on-air staff members and how to write headlines as clickbait and that kind of thing. How does Paul generate so much clickbait headlines and the rest of them can't seem to get that many clicks? So he was there to more or less teach him his secrets, everybody their secrets, and sort of discipline him at the same time. Like, this sucks. Don't do that. This headline is garbage. That kind of thing.
Oh, God.
And I was not part of that meeting, but I heard about it. I heard how, I mean, from what I understand, Paul was being somewhat rude to a lot of the on-air staff, and I heard a lot of them were like, "This is really uncalled for." I get it. You know how to write a good headline. You know how to get people to click on your stuff, but what's with all this? And I've always felt that Paul treated me that way. I don't know if it was directly like, anti-Semitic or anything like that. I'm not going to say that, but I do know because I kind of feel like he doesn't care, like, about me personally. Like, he wasn't like, let's wipe him off the face of the earth too. I just think he was being his antisocial self. And, I always had an impression he was an awkward guy. I felt kind of that way about Jim Tucker, the old man.
Yeah.
Who, when we went to Bilderberg Group, who wrote for American Free Press.
Yeah.
American Free Press is known to be sort of an anti-Semitic newspaper, and Jim Tucker was an old timer there.
Yeah.
And he really warmed up to Aaron Dykes, like really warmed up to him. But whenever I would ask Jim Tucker any questions about Bilderberg or anything like that, yeah, okay. I never understood why until maybe years and years later when it dawned upon me that, American Free Press is known for anti-Semitic points of view.
Yeah.
Paul Joseph Watson is part of this, the Great Replacement theory, where, I mean, that's severely white supremacist.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, this is what those guys were literally chanting at Charlottesville, carrying torches, were very reminiscent of Nazis. I mean, back in Charlottesville in like 2018 or 2017, whenever that took place, they were literally saying Jews will not replace us. Yeah. And, Paul Joseph Watson is part of this. He's a leader, like a serious leader in this Great Replacement theory thing, as well as, Rebel Southern. TV, Laura Southern, who's part of that. And, Paul Joseph Watson also funded Tim Pool's trip to Poland.
Yeah.
And this is where
his uneventful trip to Poland.
His uneventful trip to Poland, where he was just like, they're surrounding us. It's like, nobody's surrounding you, Tim. Nobody. Like, literally
wants
nobody.
To be near you at all, Tim.
Nobody wants to be near you. Nobody cares. Nobody's chasing you. Nothing like that in the world is going on. So it didn't surprise me at all to hear Paul take that point of view. Like, I really do feel that might be his deep down sentiments. He definitely means it. He's happy to be part of that movement.
Did you ever get any of those vibes from Alex at all?
So after David Duke came on, those vibes did come through, but not as, let's say, clearly as Paul, right, and others. So definitely others in his office. So after David Duke came on, he called me the Jewish individual. One of Alex's staff members published a Photoshop. He Photoshopped my face onto a rabbi's body. And I'm talking like one of these rabbis that are like approaching the Wailing Wall, like, super rabbinical type. And it said on the bottom, the Jewish individual will take your hot topic now. And he passed this around the office. I mean, multiple copies. He Xeroxed it and passed it around the office. And it was all a big joke. Alex absolutely knew about it. He got a copy of it. It was all a big joke. At the end of the day, nothing happened to that staff member at all. In fact, I remember after I left and the Daily Mail article was published, Alex did a video where he treated that guy to dinner. And
wow. What?
Yeah, that was a video Alex just actually did. I was just like, oh, okay, all right. So that was sort of Alex's thing. See, the thing about Alex Jones is the rumors are true. Like, he might be crazy. He might be emotionally immature, like a little kid, which is part of his charisma. He acts like a little kid who's just innocent. And, you can kind of see that when he was on the stand. He's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know any. He has that kind of thing going about him. And where at the end of the day, he's not stupid. That is definitely, he knows exactly, he might be calculating. he might even be sociopathic in a serious sense, where
Yeah.
he believes the world revolves around him and is his plaything, and that's the end of the story. Like everything. That's possibly why he didn't take the Sandy Hook case so seriously, because he's like, the entire world is my toy, and this lawsuit is stupid, and I don't take it seriously at all. I could use it as a a publicity kind of stunt, instead of actually being. And this is why he probably made fun of the judge and all this other stuff, because everything is just a big old toy to him. It's just a big stupid. Everything is here for him, and he doesn't care about anybody or or anything but himself and his own wealth. So, and all these other things about Alex, but one variable that's definitely part of, Alex Jones's psyche is that he is smart.
Yes.
He can figure things out. He knows what he's doing. That's why it was very refreshing to see him on the stand and see him being called out without enough time to think about what he was going to say next. When Bankston told him about the phone, it was like, haha, or showed him his own footage, right? That it's like, why are you talking about the court case on air? I get it. It's your right as an American. You get to do it. But you're doing stupid things. I mean, it's not smart, but he sees the world as his plaything. I don't think he figured he would be called out like that in court.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why he did that. He didn't do it as like a dumb decision. He did it because he's calculating. He probably calculated the fact that they're not watching the show. And according to Bankston, he wasn't watching the show. It was that group, Knowledge Fight.
Knowledge Fight, yeah.
They provided Bankston with that. They were watching for Bankston. And I don't think Alex knew about that. He didn't count on that. No. So that's why he went crazy on the air. So when Alex saw all this stuff that they were doing against me, he wouldn't outwardly say anything completely anti-Semitic. He wouldn't just be like, yeah, shut up, Jew. It wasn't like that. Because I think he was just too smart for that. And he possibly was not as anti-Semitic as, let's say, Paul Joseph Watson or other members of the staff that were part of the office. I mean, if one guy outwardly called me Jacobson, which is like, dude, come on.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. What are you doing, man? Like, you could just call me Rob or something. What is this? It's not like that was an overweight guy. It's not like I'm like, hey, what's up, fatso? I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. This is the way Alex's staff was. And so he was totally aware of it. He never outwardly said it to me, except for that one time when David Duke happened to be on the line. That time he was like, oh, the Jewish staff member, perfect. That's the one time he did outwardly project the fact that, to everybody, to David Duke, of course.
Yeah.
So, that's what it was like. And of course, there were other times when, Alex lost it on me. And I remember once he basically lunged at me, and Anthony Gucciardi had to hold him back.
Really?
Because Gucciardi was like, Alex, knock it off. It was like, what, I didn't even expect that kind of thing.
What was that
Alex
over?
did have I don't know what it was over, but he was saying, you're not going to ruin me, Jacobson. You're not going to take me down. Oh, I know what it was. I put the wrong ad on back of one of his videos, but it wasn't like somebody else's ad that paid or didn't pay. It was just another wrong ad. It was like he wanted to advertise some brand new product, and I put some other product instead that was still in the store. It was, and he was just like, you're not gonna take me down. You're not gonna ruin me. I was like, dude, man, it's still one of your own ads on the back of one of these silly videos that you're putting out, that you put out every day. So it was something like that. And this is why I think Gucciardi jumped in, because it's like, dude, calm down. I mean, you're really overreacting over something that, all you could do is say, hey, man, I noticed we did ask you to put the other ad in, So that was like literally weeks before he fired me.
Right. So, Rob, today it's come out that Alex Jones has sent a naked photo of his wife to Roger Stone, and famously on air, he exposed that his phone was open with 2 separate transgender porn videos open on his phone. What's that about then?
Oh no, Alex is a total pervert. I mean,
Really?
oh yeah, he's a complete perv.
Do tell.
I mean, well, we see it when Alex inexplicably appears on radio shows or his own show with no shirt on. I mean, what's that all about? Could
Well, yeah.
anybody give any reasonable explanation on why Alex is just showing up with no shirt over and over again on his own show and other people's shows? That guy would come out of his own, like I described his personal bathroom previously. Talking about he had his own personal bathroom in the same media room that Rob Do, his producer, and other media people. He just, I mean, early in the morning, he just walked right out of that room, no shirt on. Like there are women that work in this place. It's like, dude, man, yeah, you're the boss, but be appropriate, will you? I mean, nobody wants to see you with no shirt on. I mean, you're not impressing anybody here. Please.
Does he still think that he looks like he looked when he was 18? Or?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what he sees when he looks in the mirror. I mean, I know what I see when he came out of that bathroom. It's like, no, dude, no.
How much can Alex Jones drink? Because I've seen him polish off a large bottle of whiskey, in under 2 hours.
Oh yeah, he could drink. He would go on the air drunk. More or less.
Thought
He's like
that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you would see him with like a paper cup, and that usually has either liquor or wine. He loves a good Pinot Grigio, and he would drink a good Pinot Grigio at 11 a.m. Doesn't matter.
Really?
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's his morning juice. It's just some juice in the morning, no biggie, and.
Wow.
Yeah, he would go on the air, or he would have liquor. I don't know if it would be whiskey. I do remember him drinking a lot of vodka as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He smokes as well. I've just recently saw him smoking cigarettes outside the court.
Yes. When I first met Alex, he was an avid smoker. He never wanted me to. He would always be caught on camera smoking a cigarette, but we'd always cut it out of the videos. Because cigarettes just look bad on camera. Like, period.
Yeah.
They look terrible. So, and of course, it also knocks one's reputation down, slightly.
Well, yeah, I was very surprised actually. Like when I saw him smoke, I thought, no, not you, Alex. And then I thought, I don't know why I care.
No, he was smoking as far as I remember. He's always been a smoker. I do believe he did quit for a long time. There was a moment there that he took a great effort in quitting. So I saw that video too of him smoking, and I'm like, wow. Like
he must be stressed.
He must be stressed if he's back on the cigarettes. I mean, I do have a strong recollection of just him not smoking. And it's not like you think about somebody not smoking, but a lot of people who would be on an Alex Jones trip or something like that, or run into him, catch him smoking, and. Yeah.
And just finally, and again, thank you so much for your time, Rob.
You're welcome.
How did Infowars deal with the concept that Alex Jones was actually Bill Hicks who'd faked his own death, particularly because of the interactions that you had with Kevin Booth, who was obviously Bill Hicks' friend?
Well, it's always been kind of funny to me, Kevin Booth, who I haven't spoken to Kevin in years. I've spoken to him after I left Infowars. We tried to do a couple of projects together, which never really took off. They were small time, but we tried. And he would get on the phone routinely. It was almost funny. He'd like instead of hello, it'd be like, so you don't think Alex is Bill Hicks, do you? And it was like, why are you asking me that, man? It's almost now, maybe yes, now I do, because you asked me that question. So Booth definitely took notice of this kind of thing. I myself, in my mind, I would toy with the idea, like, well, if if Paul McCartney died back in '66, then if Paul McCartney died in '66, in that case, Alex Jones is Bill Hicks. It's either Paul McCartney didn't die and this man we see to this day is the true Paul McCartney from the original Beatles, then Alex Jones is not Bill Hicks. Otherwise, like that is my answer to the entire thing.
Ironically, he like kind of stopped talking to you when you became a reader.
That's right. When I became a reader, he stopped talking to me altogether. Perhaps I would stumble upon a paragraph or two that would blow his cover, like who knows. But I do remember Daria, after I left, messing with me over the idea of the Bill Hicks thing. And she said, now I know Alex always had a beard because it was one time, I think I was even on video, like I slap him in the face or something like that, just like funny. So I know he had like and plus his shaving stuff was all over the office. He shaved every morning to get that clean shaved look that he used to have. So, Daria said to me, have you ever noticed Alex never, ever, as if he had prosthetic surgery? She was kind of messing with me. And I was like, yeah. Even though I knew that, I know that Alex had like facial hair, I know this. I've been around the guy. We've been on trips. We've been to everywhere. And I was like, yeah, if that's true, like, yeah, that could have been like a prosthetic cheeks on him. And, this way they would have done this jawline surgery. And it was funny that I said that because right after I said that to Daria, Alex grew out his beard as if approved to the fact that he's not Bill Hicks and he doesn't have the prosthetic surgery. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's exactly what they want you to think, though, isn't it?
Exactly.
Really?
So
it is.
Looking back at, obviously the man is not Bill Hicks. That's kind of crazy. But it is also crazy going back to the old Bill Hicks videos and seeing A, they do look alike, and B, they had the exact same philosophy, and C, they both knew Kevin.
Well, and they were both at Waco at the same day, like on film, which always to me sort of like put a bit of a spanner in the spokes of that particular theory.
Yeah, that will be the end of that theory.
Yeah. But yes, like particularly, with their involvement with Waco.
I would say there's no theory about Alex that is more fun, however, than the Alex is Bill Hicks theory. Like that was a favorite of mine back in the day.
Can I just get your take on the Sandy Hook trial that's just finished and what's next?
My take on it is when I heard that they were asking for $150 million, I honestly didn't think it's enough. And it's not that I think that, it's a terrible tragedy. I'm glad that the Sandy Hook parents are going to receive whatever they receive. I understand there is a legal cap on punitive damages in Texas, which is unfortunate. I hope that Bankston is able to go around that somehow. But I also don't think it's enough because I do believe Alex is selfishly projecting this sort of cult-like behavior through America, which caused January 6th. We could all say Trump conspired and so on and so forth. And, he tried, he was going to take over America and call, civil whatever. But it was really Alex that projects all of that behavior. That's him, and then he's like, no, that was QAnon that caused it. Well, he may hate QAnon, which he publicly says, but that's because QAnon steps on his toes.
Exactly.
They're taking his. Said that he knew who Q was.
I never heard him say that, but I don't disbelieve that. And I do think that the only reason why Alex would fall out of favor with QAnon is because he might have suggested, no, do it this way. This is the way you do it. And they just went off on their own lunatic tangent anyhow without listening to Alex at all, which would make him displeased, and then he'd be like, I hate them now, So even though a lot of people would blame QAnon on including Alex was physically at January 6th. So was Owen Schroyer, who was egging people to go into the Capitol building. And they were just, they were saying all sorts of, we're taking over today. This is the day, all these things on the megaphone. And that whole crowd is there. QAnon, all their belief systems, Hillary's eating babies, Alex basically said the same thing. He got Pizzagate, that guy to go down to Comet Pizza because this is all Alex. Like, so maybe QAnon takes what Alex says and takes it to another level or distorts it slightly, not that much, just slightly. But it all originates from Alex. That entire crowd is arguably originated from Alex. Stuart Rhodes from the Oath Keepers got his idea to become the Oath Keepers from Alex. The Proud Boys was not only, Gavin McGinnis was on Alex's show quite a lot before the Proud Boys was a thing. And Alex went to a lot of Proud Boys get-togethers, and he sent his own staff there to videotape it and to show it on the channel, as well as Joe Biggs was an on-air staff member for Alex, who Joe Biggs himself became like one of the 5 top-ranking members of Proud Boys before Enrico Tarrio took over. And I believe Joe Biggs is sitting in jail to this day on sedition charges for his actions in January 6th. Yeah. So, I would say that all that you see in the January 6th crowd, if it wasn't for Alex Jones doing what he does, that wouldn't have happened. That's it. Period. End of story. That just wouldn't have happened without Alex Jones being a force in America for the last decade or decade and a half. And it's that long to boil up to that point.
Absolutely.
And he's not stopping. So he's at that. We're still at that January 6th point. And all anybody has to do is go on Twitter and see how insane, how upper level people are acting over Trump and the FBI raid. And, Crowder was like, tomorrow's war. Have a good night. I mean, what are you talking about, Crowder? It's lunatic stuff is really going on. And all the stuff started. Alex did not stop after the judgment of eventually was $50 million in total with, everything like 49 million and change or whatever. And that's not enough to stop him. Like the reason why I was upset at the 150 million is because it's not enough to stop him. He has more money.
He could afford it, essentially.
He could afford it. And because I do believe he's probably sociopathic, take that 150 million from him. Maybe a couple of people get fired. Maybe he even moves his office into some other place, but he's still going to go on the air. And he's going to say whatever the hell he says. And he's going to move that boiling point even further down the line to another catastrophe. And you see him already trying to already say, now we have to get ready and organize for a full-out civil war, is what he is now saying, because he lost this court case. And now with this FBI thing with Trump. So I'm hoping that in the cases coming up, they set the damages at literally $500 million. You can't replace a child, of course. $500 million will buy a lot of nice things for the parents, and their family will no longer have to possibly worry about money problems for the rest of their lives or whatever. But you cannot replace a child. Like their child was still gunned down. It will not fill the empty hole that was left there, and especially being completely terrorized after your child was buried by a group of lunatics. That experience will never be. It's unrecoverable. Infinity money. He could turn over $1 billion or $10 billion.
And that would never change it. Yeah, exactly.
It would never change the fact that any of that stuff has happened. Maybe that family could do a lot of good with that money at best, but it will never ever wipe away what happened. What it will do, if they took $1 billion from Alex, that guy is off the air. He'd be off the air at $1 billion.
Yeah.
500 million, he's probably off the air. He's probably done. And and it's not like, oh, you're trying to cancel him, you're trying to censor him. Well, the guy does defamatory stuff. We do have we have a freedom of press, freedom of speech. You're allowed to ask questions, but you're not allowed to defame people the way he defamed people. And you're not allowed to cause an insurrection and, say repeatedly false things. I mean, of all the abuse or not abuse, but of all the criticism he launches at, let's say, platforms like CNN or MSNBC and stuff, Alex is literally, no exaggeration, like 100 times as bad. Anything he says about those guys, if CNN says 5 lies a day, Alex says 500 lies a day.
It's true.
I mean, and he never retracts anything he says. He just makes up excuses and propels it forward and moves forward, that kind of thing. So I think that he's gone from being some conspiracy theory, just asking quizzical questions, Bohemian Grove guy, look at what the elites do on their private time kind of person, to an actual menace, somebody who is causing serious damage to our society for his own amusement, literally. So he gets profit out of it, and he gets to be this, smiley guy in his own office, and everybody claps for him in his own little circle. And that's the only reason why he's doing it. And I don't think it's worth it for us to have a menace like Alex in society who is abusing free speech by defaming people and causing insurrections, which people died during the insurrections, ruined the lives. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Joe Biggs or anybody, but Joe Biggs' life is basically ruined because of Alex Jones. And others face their lives being ruined as well. Alex doesn't care, and he basically, and there might be another looming January 6th in the future because Alex remains on the air. And the only way to stop him, he will never, ever, ever stop. You'll never talk him out of it. You'll never shame him. You'll never say that he did the wrong thing. He'll say, yes, I know Sandy Hook was false. I feel terrible. He doesn't. I do this, I do that. Nothing will ever stop him from going forward with this unless his power is taken away from him. And his power is his money. And that's why I hope that the next trial, which I believe takes place in Connecticut, which has different laws than Texas, I really hope that, the lawyer in Connecticut sets the damages, the punitive and whatever compulsory damages, way up there at like $500 million, and hopefully he wins the full amount. I do feel that the lawyer, I've met the guy, Mr. Matty. He's a very good lawyer, and he's not afraid of Alex. And Bankston's not afraid of Alex either, and he did a great deal.
No, he was brilliant.
He was brilliant. Yeah, he's brilliant. I'm just hoping for an equally brilliant performance in Connecticut and enough damages that will actually stop Alex and take him down. The point is not to enrich anybody, which of course going to the Sandy Hook parents, that's as decent as it would be. But in my opinion, it will also serve to stop Alex from causing another disaster, which is definitely necessary.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Rob. Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
sharing your story. Thanks for your time, and thanks for actually giving your witness testimony to this case and to the next one.
Yes. I feel that I need to do so to stop whatever pending disaster Alex will cause next.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for having me on.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
Thank you very much, mate. Thank you.
You're welcome. Goodbye.
Well, that was great. I really loved getting to hear Rob's journey from believer to skeptic. It really reminded me of my own journey. It was absolutely fascinating. I just want to give a quick shout out to DJ Thermal Detonator of Truther TV for suggesting that we speak to Rob. You can follow him on Twitter at DJ Thermal D. That's at DJ Thermal D. You can follow Rob on Twitter at RobJA237. That's at RobJA237. And we are at Some Dare Podcast, at Neil Sanders MC, and at Brent Lee SDCIC.